The courtroom was silent except for the faint echo of the judge's gavel striking the polished wood. The sound lingered, heavy and final like a coffin lid closing. Across the room, a frail woman sat hunched at the defense table, her trembling hands clasping an old, faded handbag as if it were her last possession. Her name was Martha Elwood, a widow who had lost everything except her dignity, and even that was being stripped away before a room full of strangers. "Mrs. Elwood," the judge had said earlier with a smirk, "it seems you're asking this court for mercy. But perhaps you should have thought of that before you failed to pay your debts." His laughter, quiet but cruel, echoed through the courtroom, joined by a few snickers from the plaintiff's table. He didn't hide his disdain. To him, she was just another old woman who hadn't kept up with her mortgage payments. Another case number, another inconvenience. But to Martha, this wasn't about money. It was about the house her late husband had built with his bare hands. The only place that still carried his voice. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that one good deed can change a life, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Silent Stories right now. Because what happens next will remind you that not all heroes were badges or suits. Martha sat quietly as the opposing lawyer, a sharp-tongued man in an expensive suit, continued tearing her apart with paperwork and condescension. Every word he spoke made her smaller in that chair. Her home, he argued, was collateral and law was law. The judge nodded along, amused. Martha's public defender barely looked up from his notes, too intimidated to speak. It felt hopeless. The walls of that upscale courtroom gleamed with light. Yet everything in Martha's world had turned dark. The truth was cruel. Her husband, a mechanic named Harold, had died suddenly from a heart attack 3 years earlier. With the funeral costs, hospital bills, and their only source of income gone, she had fallen behind on payments. Her small-town bank, now owned by a corporate conglomerate, wanted her house, not for the debt, but for the land beneath it. Martha had begged them for time, pleaded with the judge, written letters no one read. By the time the foreclosure reached the court, she'd already accepted that no one cared. But fate, as it often does, had been quietly writing another chapter. 3 days earlier, while walking back from the grocery store, Martha had dropped her purse outside a roadside diner. She hadn't noticed, but someone had. A man sitting on a Harley outside the diner, broad-shouldered, tattooed, with a leather vest that read, "Hell's Angels," picked it up and jogged after her. He found her struggling with her groceries and returned it with a polite nod. His name was Ronan. He asked if she was okay. She said yes, though the tears in her eyes said otherwise. When he gently pressed, she told him her story. She didn't ask for help. She only needed someone to listen. But Ronan did more than listen. He promised her, "You're not alone anymore, ma'am." Martha hadn't believed he meant it. Not until this morning. Back in the courtroom, the judge was preparing to deliver his final ruling. He leaned forward, lips curling in satisfaction. "Mrs. Elwood," he said coldly, "this court hereby rules in favor of the plaintiff." The words froze mid-sentence as the heavy double doors creaked open. Every head turned. The room fell silent. 3 men walked in, their boots striking the marble floor like thunder. The first was Ronan, his salt and pepper beard catching the light, his vest gleaming with patches that told stories of roads and brotherhood. Behind him was a bald, broad man with a long, dark beard, and another younger man with shoulder-length brown hair and sunglasses. They didn't belong in a courtroom, yet they walked as if they owned the moment. The bailiff stepped forward nervously, but Ronan raised a hand, calm, commanding. "We're not here for trouble," he said, voice steady. He walked straight to the defense table, stopping beside Martha, who looked up in stunned silence. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Ronan placed an envelope on the table. "That's a certified check," he said firmly, looking straight at the judge. "Covers everything she owes, the debt, the interest, the court fees. You can stop laughing now." The judge's mouth fell open. The opposing lawyer blinked, speechless. No one moved. For a full 10 seconds, the room was frozen until the judge leaned back, his smirk gone, and cleared his throat. "Well," he stammered, "if the payment is verified, then this case is dismissed." Martha gasped, covering her mouth with shaking hands. Tears spilled down her cheeks. The same courtroom that had felt like a prison now echoed with freedom. The same people who had looked at her with pity now watched her with awe. Ronan helped her to her feet gently. "Told you, ma'am," he whispered. "You're not alone anymore." For a moment, Martha couldn't speak. She just held his hand, whispering, "Thank you," through her tears. When she looked up, she saw the sunlight streaming through the tall windows, warm, golden, alive. It felt like her husband's spirit was there, smiling at her. The bikers turned to leave. As they walked toward the doors, the courtroom, once judgmental and cold, broke into quiet applause. Even the judge, flustered and humbled, gave a slow, reluctant nod. Martha sat back down, clutching the old handbag that no longer held just memories. It held her new beginning, and when the heavy doors closed behind those men, the sound didn't echo with fear. It echoed with hope. Before we reach the end, tell me in the comments, what did you feel when the bikers walked in? Did it remind you that kindness can come from the most unexpected hearts? Martha went home that evening and sat on her porch, the sunset painting her world in color again. The wind carried the sound of distant engines fading, but full of promise. She whispered a prayer not for herself, but for the men who reminded her that angels sometimes ride motorcycles. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Silent Stories, because somewhere out there, someone still believes in doing good when the world stops caring.